the markets came off the highs and near resistance as well. But Friday was a nice little bounce off the moving averages. We'll see if that can hold. If you take a look at the S&P 500, after the multiple tops were taken out, we're now in a pullback retest mode. There's a rising channel bottom here, 21-day moving average, and you can see we popped off of that not far from the double top support level. Hard to say whether market is going a lot lower or a lot higher right now. This is kind of a key area for it. If you take a look at where we are now, if we can punch up through this declining top sign, we got a shot at 43 to 43.40 in that area. But a breakdown here could retest the trend line and 50-day moving average at about 39.70, 75 area. That's for starters. And let's just see whether the major trend line can hold for now. NASDAQ 100, a little different, nice base. Breakout, got up to resistance number 1 and pulled back on a nice little flag. Although it was a down day on Friday and we're at the prior highs, this is an important area. I would have to say that 12,050 to Friday's low of 12,204, that 150-point range right now is the key support short term, because a break of that area would confirm that the entire trend line has been broken. That's this trend line here. So we're at a point now where if this zone holds, doesn't hold, we're coming down. That's 11,600. On the upside, resistance is obviously 12.8, 12.9 zone, and then it targets 13.2, and all the way up there at 13.750. Well, we'll see if that occurs, but it's a nice base breakout and pullback. And if you looked at it as a chart of a stock and said, all right, nice base form, triple bottom, breakout and first pullback, sometimes there's a buying opportunity. So we'll just have to see what the market wants to do here. That's the NASDAQ 100. Transportation index. Well, it also had a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave decline, followed by a pop out, pullback retest, did about a 50% fib, and then ran up to the channel top, just about above a little breakout point before the recent pullback, brings it back to where all the highs are. So support is around 14.7. We have about I would say 300, 250 point buffer on the transportation index. The IWM, same pattern almost, long declining top sign broken, breakout and pullback right to the first support level and entry opportunity perhaps. But a breakdown could get this one down to 183. One must be careful here. This is a key area for both, all the indices. The oscillators. Well, McClellan oscillator, it looks like this. From an overbought area above 200 to an moderately oversold area to minus 128 on Friday before a bounce. The historic zone in here shows that something closer to minus 180, 200 is an ideal level from which we get a more important rally. So there's always a possibility we may see a little bit of a lower low first. Stay tuned, we'll let you know about that. Now the percentage of stocks holding above their 40-day moving average dropped up a little bit, but it's still 70%. So 7 out of 10 stocks still above their 40 bullish sign. If you look at new highs, new lows last week, every day just about, there were more new highs than lows, and sometimes substantially. Now look at the VIX, which really hasn't done much. You can see though finally getting a bounce after a drop that took it all the way from the mid 30s to the high teens, cut in half basically, and then a little bit of a bounce. Are we coming out of this? Well, just like we did there, which will lead to that and maybe move up towards 30 or 35. Well, if the markets break, certainly we can see a spike up in the VIX, but this hasn't acted well for a while, and I'm not clear why, but I wanted to leave it at that for now. The components. Apple, which had a huge run right up to resistance, almost double, triple topping in this area, that's pulled back. There is a gap on Apple right here and a support level that I can 147.80, 85. I would have to say that's your near-term support. Got down as low as 149.25 Friday before bouncing. So we'll just have to see if this wants to continue up towards 165, or we get a breakdown and a pullback that tests lower levels somewhere in the I'd call it 144 and then 139 area. Google, sharp break, and disconcerting. When you look at Google and Amazon, you'll see what I mean. Two of the biggest components other than Apple, Google took a big break from Tuesday's high, and it was up to its 108.67 to Thursday's low at 93 and change, 15-point drop off, which got down to secondary support, but not really bouncing. That's concerning. And Amazon with an island reversal, look at this, perfect example of a textbook island reversal where a stock runs up and then spikes up a gap and then gaps down the next day, leaving an island. This is a one-day island reversal, very bearish. And you can see that Amazon now back to a support level, but with lower level support around 91.5. The key, I think, 91.5, 92 is the key to Amazon going forward. NVIDIA did finally break after a long run up, but some key support down here should it break even further in the mid to high 188s. Microsoft, also a spike up to resistance and then a pullback right to near where support is, right in that gap. Secondary support is right there. The angle of ascent quite steep, but when you see this kind of a short-term rising channel that's steeply higher, you'll get pullbacks like you did there and here. We'll see if there's any further downside damage, but your next support, and the big one, is right there at about 255. On the upside, resistance is 275, 77 zone. Target 295. Netflix. Well, it's been doing great for quite a while. Let's look at an hourly. I want to show you something. It looks like the possibilities of a head and shoulders right here, with the left shoulder, head, right shoulder, and breakdown there. The Netflix next target might be about 335, 12 points, maybe lower. Nevertheless, based on the rising channel, it has room to pull back and retest. Certainly resistance now is 377, 78, up in that area. And Meta, which was doing great, also took a hit last week after the big running, or should I say exhaustion gap. Concerning is that it went into the gap and continued to drift down with some support now 170, 71. And Tesla, of course, with a monster run, doubling from a spike low here of it says 101.81, 214, more than doubling. Another pullback. The key for Tesla, short-term support, let's call it 189.90. Secondary support, 182.3. If it should hold this trend line, which is huge, we may see 220, 24 on it. But again, along with the tooth, you got to be careful with that one. Okay, so that's a look at the components and the underlying technicals as well as the indices. Let's look at some ETFs and big, the important ones like these semiconductors, SMH. You can see that the SMH kind of drifted underneath its trend line, underneath the moving averages, and are at key initial support. So always draw your trend line back like that. And the possibilities exist that if it can hold here, that the SMH still has room to run back to 256 and even as high as 268. But a breakdown of last week's lows should get to a lower level, perhaps down around the 233, 34 zone. Financials doing well, but the pullback obviously off the 1, 2, 3, fourth wave pullback should have some support. Right across there where it bounced off of on Friday. I'm sorry, not Friday. It's an hourly chart. Yep, Friday morning. So you can see the platform. We don't want that below, because if we get below that, you may have your jeopardy of breaking the trend line and have the financials pull back quite a bit. But it is a 1, 2, 3, 4, wave 4. Fifth wave could take you up to about 96 to 98. Now the biotechs suddenly have gotten weaker. You can see the big pullback on the XBI from 92 to 85, and it's on support at the rising 50-day moving average lateral price support as well. A break here, and we're going down to 80, which would be disconcerting. And it's also affected, obviously, the LABU, which is a triple biotech bull. And it really got hammered back from a high of 940 a week and a half ago, back to 711. And this is a little bit below the moving average and below price support, which is disconcerting to me. This has to rally quickly, or we may are in jeopardy of another retest of 6. What about oil? Well, the USO rallied back to resistance, but still below the declining tops line. This is a promising consolidation or base. A lot of individual oil stocks, which we'll show you later, look somewhat promising, but they might also be doing nothing more than consolidating in bear triangle, or trading ranges before they break down. So the key for USO, in my mind, is to get it over 72 in that range, 72 and a quarter. That could break it back into the high 70s, low 80s. That's oil. The other oil we follow is GUSH. You can see it's also in the trading range, eliminating that line and this. You'll see the range I'm talking about. Until that gets over 168, I'm not going to be happy with it. And if it fails in that zone, if it starts to roll over, we might see this down to 110, 52. So careful with oil. I am still of a cautious nature, the oil sector, particularly with massive long-term consolidations in here that could be massive tops or one big consolidation. But right now, after a long run, it's much more dangerous up here. Okay, covered most of what I wanted to, but I do want to just take a quick look at gold. Really broke down. Look at the GDX break its trend line with a breakaway gap, and it followed it through to the downside. JNUG the same. I told you it's no longer a trade because it broke, and it broke significantly, and it may have even more downside risk short term. I can see this down being about 31, 32 range. JNUG. Silver is not pretty either. Here's the AGQ. You can see the technical breakaway gap to the downside, breaking the trend, and having a problem even at first support. So I'm soured on gold and silver. And I'm going to remain that way until they tell me differently. Let's take a look at a bunch of longs that I think have promising patterns. Now, ACLX is one of my top 20 picks for the year, and it's consolidating, but it's pulled down last week along with several other bios to test their 50-day moving average support now at 30, and it's right there. AEHR has been getting a lot of profit taken and insider selling of late. And this stock, which got up to 37.57, closed 30.56, or 7 points off the high of Tuesday. Just this week, it looks like a technical break. So this may be vulnerable to the high 20s right now. AI, which had a monster move with all the hubbub with ChatGPT. This one went from 10 to 30. It's pulled 31, actually, I think it was 30.92. And it's pulled all the way down 10 points to get down to 21.56, about 9.5 points still. In 1 week to get that much of a pullback. Now, it's at support. This is a key area for it. My stop would be under 21. But if it bounces here, you might see mid-20s, even high 20s again. ALVO Tech, a phenomenal biotech stock, exploded in December at a beautiful falling wedge on low volume ebb. It broke out with a breakaway gap and formed a coil. Low volume ebb near the apex. Gap, gap, coil. Low volume ebb again, and then break out again. So a fantastic chart pattern. A huge rising angle. It's taking a stock from 5 and change to almost 14. I don't think it's done yet. If it continues, you might see 15, 16, even as high as 18 or 19. ANF, beautiful retailer chart. Breaks out of the base here, a breakaway gap, pulls back, flags, breaks out again. It has a rising pattern now. It looks like it can go higher. Mid-30s target. APA, well, one of the first large type intermediate to large cap oil that I followed closely. As you know, we were big winners on this one from way back when it was a single digit stock, and it made it into the 50 range. Over the last 3 months, it's been consolidating, or is it topping? Well, we don't know yet. It does look like a 1-2 double top in this area, but this could be a bullish consolidation. If oil does break out and APA goes, I'm looking for 50, 55, and 60. But a breakdown here would be dangerous for me to see this under 41. ARDX, low price biotech, beautiful chart. I wanted to show it to you since the July low at 50 cents. The stock went up to 343. So 7-fold increase in about 8 months. And it's still looking like it's not done yet. Upside momentum could carry this to 4 and 5. ARRY, inverse head and shoulder breakout. That was a swing for us. It worked. Then it came down. It's been consolidating for months now. Excuse me. The rising trend line here shows that a long consolidation must have a breakout over 24 for this thing to make upside progress. Well, AT, which came down after the IPO and then exploded, has gone from 11 and change to 29 and change, almost tripling, and then a pull down falling wedge. Had a nice day Friday, but it didn't, Thursday, but it didn't close well. It backed off. Now that's your pattern. You can see that if it does extend out of this pattern, and if that's a 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth wave, and this one could get you to mid to high 30s, believe it or not. BAND, software stock that exploded with a breakaway gap there, moved up nicely, and then backed off. This is a tech traded swing back then. Then went to a new high early this week at 29.07, only to back off to 24 and change as the market and tech stocks pull back. On the trend line here, key support. BBAI exploded one day and pulled back and got very quiet for a week, and then took off from 2 to 6.77 before pulling back. If momentum carries this further, it's an $8 to $10 stock potentially. BLBD, well, look at the left shoulder, head, right shoulder breakout and pull back retest and an explosive move last week. Extension target is 22.5 and then 27. Great momentum in that one. Boyle, I wanted to show you Boyle because for the last 5 days last week, this stock had up volume on an up day. Now it's going to need a follow through to get to about 690 for this one to really be meaningful, but it may be setting up. And here's a 15-minute look at what I'm talking about. There's your base. Breakout through there could really run it. Keeping an eye on that for next week. I think that guess is reversing. BORR, beautiful chart. Nice week last week, up every day. Went from 5.5 to 6 3/4, and closed really up the upper end of the range, but at resistance, lateral, the high June highs as well. 696. So we get through that, this clear sailing for this one into the 8-9 zone. BOX comes through a triple top and it's hits the top of the channel, backs and fills, but it's consolidating beautifully. Targeting mid-30s and then maybe 40. China Automotive, pop coil, pop wedge, and then pop again. It's in a fifth wave movement. I don't know how far it goes, but momentum could carry it to 11, 12, 13. Cobb has been a long-term play, and it's been one of my top 20 picks, I believe. Nope, it's not. It's just one of my swing trades. It's done very, very well. But this week started to pull back a little bit. Keep an eye on it. CBAY wanted to show this chart. Last May trading at $1.68, then it ran up to 4 and change and backed off and coiled for 4 months. Finally to break out again in December and make a run from the 3 3/4 range all the way up to 8 3/4. More than doubling and then some, and still no signs of a pullback, although there is overhead resistance here. Next target conceivably could be 14-ish. CECO, beautiful chart. Tech traded swing, not having a good day Friday. After running up a bit, it reversed and then came back up. So it did hold support at the trend line. That's a good thing. And we'll see if it does gets a follow. For this one needs to get to 15. COTY, beautiful rising channel. It's gone from 6 and change to almost 10 3/4, and doesn't look done yet. Next target 11, 15, 20. CRNC coming out of a base pattern. This software stock is as a rounding bottom and has for me a target near 39.40. CRTO coming out of a base with explosive volume, rumored to be a takeover candidate, looking pretty good. My gut feels the takeover may be in the low to mid 40s. Cognizant broke out. We put a swing on it. It pulled back and then ran up sharply right to the target. Now in a falling wedge, a bullish looking one at that. I have a target now that says this stock could be retesting 70, 71, and then 75. Carvana with a monster move on perhaps big short covering, literally from 362 to 1987. A 5-fold increase, or more than that, and now the pullback. Key support 860, resistance 1819. DADA, this Chinese 5-wave move has now got a falling wedge, so it's less reliable, but keep an eye on support just beneath here. Target 17.5. Recent IPO, Leonardo DRS, symbol DRS, came down and then it ripped from around 9 to 13.5, a 50% move. But more importantly, since the IPO, the angle of ascent looks like a rising channel or wedge, and it could see mid-teens. EDU, a tech trader swing after triple top breakout, has moved nicely from 29 3/4 to a high of 46.63 before the recent pullback. Nevertheless, it doesn't look done, and my channel top target is in the mid to high 50s. Exploded wedge, popped as a wedge again, although Friday it pulled down. Key support 10.5, key resistance 16 and 18. Those are targets as well. EHTH, tech traded swing that broke out in December, has gone from 4 to 9 and change. Looking very good in here, had a positive inside day Friday. I'm looking for a move now to get into the 12-13 zone. ELF has been phenomenal all year. It continues to be so. Just from May alone, when the stock was in the 20s, low 20s, $20 and change, it has gone to 73, nearly quadrupling. But it's long in the tooth and near overhead resistance at the top of the channel. EPOW, very spiky, very thin. Exploded, pulled back, exploded here, popped, and popped again. You can see quadruple top resistance 4.5 range. We get through that looking at 6 or 7. ETNB in a beautiful rising channel and has been all year since May when it was 2.25. Has made it up into the mid-teens. Fabulous move. Doesn't look done yet. ETNB is a top 20 pick as well. EVH, Evolent, broke out, put a swing on it, then back to fill, hit the target, pulled back, trying it again. Needs to get to 33.25. Target's then at 36 and 39. FDMT, another top 20 pick, exploded, and it's been coiling or flagging for 3 months. Should have break out of here. We're looking at 29 and 35. FGEN, another biotech stock that should have made my list, but didn't. 1, 2, 3, 4, and a big 1, 2, 3, and 4. Maybe we got one more leg up into the high 20s, low 30s. Good momentum. Foot Locker, breaking out of a base pattern through a quadruple top, and then running up to the first resistance. It's pulled back a little, but the overall look looked pretty interesting. The inclining top line was broken too. So once it gets through here, we're looking for a move maybe into the 50s. First Solar has had a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but I'm not sure if this is 1, 2, or 5, and that we have 3, 4, and 5 left. We'll see, but right now it's on support. So it's kind of critical here. It holds at 160.61 range. GAN broke out of a base. We put a little swing on it. Went to target number 1 or near it, and then pulled back. It's right on support here. Needs to hold it in this zone. The drop dead stop is under 180.85. Over 245. I'm looking for 3 and 4. GDS popped, pulled back, popped out, broke out. We put a swing on it, went up and got to the target, and now it's been coiling for 6 weeks. Didn't have a good day Friday, dropping 273. We'll see if it's meaningful or not. It's right on support. Geo ran up, exploded, wedge, and now it's popping again. I think the stock has mid-teens written on it. Glycomimetics exploded, coiled, popped, wedged, popped, wedged. It just stair-stepping its way up in a channel that's talking 4.5, 3/4 as a target. Genius Group explodes, gap, gap, wedges and gaps, and now is a flag. This kind of a parallel chart often will continue in this channel. My target's 10.5, 11. HROW, a top 20 pick, having a good time of it, ran up sharply in the last week and a half. Took it from about 13 to 19, actually 20. 50% move, and now a little bit of a pullback, but my target now is 23.5, 24. Icosavix exploded, pulled back, and now it's been channeling. Looks like it wants to continue in that channel. My target's 14 and 16. IMCR, beautiful biotech pop again through a base here and a retest there. Then a run up to the target and a pullback and it's wedging. Through here, you might see $80. IMRA also pop, wedge, pop, long coil is breaking out or is trying to. You can see the multiple 4 tops in this area. If we can get this above 540, you might see 6.5 and 8. IMVT, a top 20 pick as well. Look at this pop coil and this run up the channel. Targets high 20s. IQ, really nice chart. I think it's Chinese. The stock's run up dramatically. Broke out of the wedge a week and a half ago and has been wedging in here. Should this one take out 788, I would look for 10, 10.5. Kyndryl, that's this IBM spinoff a year and a half ago. And a really nice report this week and popped and is now wedging. I'm looking for 18 and 20. KDNY, top 20 pick as well as you can see. Is certainly got a very strong chart pattern. Coming out of a base, retesting, wedging, and popping. I'm now looking for a stock to make the mid-30s. KWLD, well, with nat gas down hard, this thing had a big run, but it's starting to roll over. I wanted to show you that after showing you Boyle, excuse me. So careful on coal because I think it's going to retrace and Boyle's going to go up. Chinese automotive, the manufacturer Lee, sloppy on Friday as it gapped down and went down $1.39. It's still above the trend line, but in danger. A little sloppy in here, but I got a target at 27.5. Luckin Coffee has been phenomenal since the May low when it was trading in the 5 range. Made it up to nearly 29.5, 29.75. It's coiling. The stock doesn't look done yet. Looking for mid-30s. OITS coming out of a base here. It just exploded in October. It kept running and it's still running. Wedging now, target 16.5. Gaming stock Melco came out of its base. I showed you that coil a month ago. Well, it ran up again. Now it's flagging. Obviously, once you get to 14.25, your target is 17, 18. NINE, this is a tech traded swing that may have broken on Thursday. It snapped back Friday, but it looks like a mini head and shoulders, and I'm concerned about anything in the oil group, quite frankly. I'll show you some others as we get to them. OI. Owens, Illinois, broke out, wedged, popped, and now it's kind of pulled back. Target 25.75. In the oil and gas sector, Oceaneering, breakout, pull back, run up, and it's been steady all year. It's now the highest level since 2019, and that high was 21 and change, and that's my target. Excuse me, 24. OM, breakout, pull back, we put a swing on. It's been beautiful ever since, going from 18 to 31. It's still consolidating nicely as long as it doesn't break down. Your next target is 33. OPRA, software stock, breakout, flag, pop, pull back and retest, but hold the trend line, and then spike up last week. Very nice. At resistance though, I move through here and I'm looking for 9, folks. 9. Occidental. Well, Some people in my room are high on Oxy. I like the company. The trend line has been broken. One could argue the angle of ascent calls for a different trend line right there. Check this out. If you're looking for parallel lines, Oxy's it. If this is a coil, we break out above 68 and run to 75 and 85. My problem is it might be a left shoulder head, right shoulder, or a double top. So the key is that this line doesn't break. Watch Oxy below 59, 9.5. That would be negative, very negative. PATH broke out of a base and put a swing on it, went to target number 1 and pulled right back to support. Let's see where this goes. Needs to hold here. Puma, inverse head and shoulder breakout and a long coil now for the last 3 months. Tried to break out a couple of times and backed off. Not ready yet. Well, what it's going to need is a pop through there. About 490, maybe you can start to see this hit 5 3/4 and 6 3/4. PCVX, one of my top 20 picks. Not a good last couple days. You can see it's on support here or near it. So keep your stops underneath 40, 40.5. While looking for a move up through 48, 49, and then I'm looking at mid-high 50s. PDSB, breakaway gap and a run up. This is also a top 20 pick, but it's had a rough month of it. It's spiking all the way up to 1365. It's pulled back 5 points and it's right on secondary support at 8, 8.25. Needs to hold there. Perion's been spectacular now for a couple of years, 3 years actually. And recently ran up to the old high, just a little bit above it, a pretty hard pullback. Still, I like to look at this chart, and I'm looking for 36, 37. Impinge, but when it broke out and pulled back, we put a swing on it, made up to target number 1, and then backed off, and then made it again to 130, 140. What was it high here? 142 3/4. Recent pullback has it vulnerable. So be careful because this stock has gone from 40 to 140, 100 points, and could see a retracement back to the low 100s. PRQR, want to show you this chart, rounding bottom, breakaway gap, and then a tightening coil. Target is 5 if it runs. 2 targets would be 3 3/4 and 5. PRVB breaks out, wedges, pops, and for 4 months has been consolidating. 3 months, but Friday, significant day. It's a pop from 921 to 1065 and finish at 1040. So this one could be on its way. I'm looking for 12.5 and 14.5. Peloton broke out. I put a swing and it backed off to test support. Kind of a key area for it. Targets are 17 and 20. Repimmune, also a top 20 pick, a beautiful inverse head and shoulder base, but it's been consolidating for 2-3 months now. It's got to take out the double top at near 30, and then you're looking at 35, 36. Ryovan, also a top 20 pick, breaks out of a flag, wedges, pops, and now it's in a flag pattern again, near support. I target 11.5 and 14 if it runs. RVPH, pop, falling wedge, pop, wedge, and then breaking out too. This one in the biotech sector looks like 6.5 and 9 may be doable down the road. Rhythm, one of our best swings of the year, went from 5 and change ultimately to 35. And now it's backing and filling a little bit and slopping here. Nevertheless, if this holds that angle, we may see the stock 36 and 44. Silex exploded, pulled back, and then it really ripped before forming a wedge and breaking out. It's wedging again. Keep an eye on it for next week. Anything over 11, the stock's a rock and rolls. Rock and roller into the low to mid teens. Seadrill recently went public again in October, popped and pulled back, and then broke out of a base here, surged, and now it's wedging. It goes again, high 40s. Steed, after a big run December through January, taking it from 6 to nearly 11, it pulled back and now it's wedging very, very quietly on low volume, only trading 15,000 on Friday. So I'm still looking for news and I'm looking for a big pop. it needs to get above 9 3/4 just for starters. Get over 970, you can really start to see stock take off. But ultimate targets in the low to mid-teens, if not higher. Shopify, the tech trader swing when it broke out, has pulled back here. Nevertheless, it's got a parallel channel that tells me if it holds right about there, your next target is high 50s. Shaw Communications, breaking out of a base with a breakaway gap and then a coil, and pop another flag. I think it goes higher. 30.31 and 32.3 are targets. SOUN exploded and finally pulled back. Some key support here at 3.15.25 range. I don't want to blow that. Targets are 5, 6, and 8 if it runs. Spotify runs right up to resistance and stalls, but in a rising flag, this thing looks pretty damn good. 145 and 160 are targets. STIM is a tech trader top 20 pick, breaks out, and on Friday, it may have broken support. Be careful with this one. Key resistance is 7M. Educational stock, Chinese educational stock, TAL, which was an inverse head and shoulders here in a breakout. That was a successful swing for it back there. It's also a tech trader swing when it broke out there, but it's pulled right back to support. Needs to hold it around this zone. TBLA, Tabula, popped and formed the coil. We put a swing on it. It's now moved up nicely and extended. It is a tech trader swing, not a top 20 pick though. Next target, 5 3/4. TERN is the top 20 pick, explodes, flags, runs up and pulls back, double top breaks out and coils, very bullish. And the run up back to resistance says if this thing gets through 1067, 13, 16, and 18 are targets. Technical glass broke out, we put a swing on it, it kept working its way slowly higher, but it pulled back on Friday. Let's see what that does. Next target for me is 40. TGTX breaks out, put a swing on it, and run right up the channel. Looks very good here. Still, it hasn't broken that trend line yet. Next target, 20. TOST came out of a base, we put a swing on it, it backed off. The pullback was not on low volume, so it's maybe in danger of a failure here. Just be careful and keep a tight stop under, say, 21. Uber, big earnings report and run up, but pull back on Lyft's bad report on Friday. Nevertheless, a really, really good run, 23 to 37.5. So it's due for a rest, but my target next is 40. UCL with a big run up and then a wedge, held the moving average and broke out. Now it's pulling back again. Looks like a 1, 2, 3, 4 to me, and a fifth wave could take you to targeting now 7 and 8.5. UMC inverse head and shoulders breakout, and now a wedge looks higher to me, 9 and 9 3/4 targets. CRTO broke out, we put a swing on it, ran up nicely, but it pulled back. This is an AI play, and that may have broken back down, but we need to see. Let's see early next week if we can hold 7.5 3/4. Viking, explosive breakaway gap and a coil that broke out last week. Next target, 14. Meridian is a top 20 pick. You can see it's weakening a little bit, but it's got a very strong chart. If it holds this zone right where it is, next target is mid-40s. Similarly, Verona is also a tech trader swing target. Excuse me, top 30 pick, top 20 pick. My target is 32. You can see why. That beautiful bull flag in wave 4, it looks like. VTYX, strong biotech, making new highs here recently and flagging. Looks like it could be in the mid-50s. WKEY is moving up nicely in the last couple months. It's gone from literally from $1.20 to 3/3, and it's at resistance here, but it has very strong Momo, and you may see this in the 4/5 zone. Wave, this lowest price stock on my top 20 pick, has pulled back to test support once again like it did a couple weeks ago. So the pattern now looks like a large flag type consolidation near support. My targets are 7 and 8 3/4 if it runs. XM coming out of a base with a breakaway gap and running up and now flagging tells me the possibilities are 19. XPON with a big pop Friday. That's the third time it's popped in a month and a half. It has to get up to 3 3/4 to really get going. Your target's 5 if that happens. And finally, Zyme is also a top 20 pick for the year. A little sloppy in here, but it still looks like a coil to me. And it's above everything. When a stock breaks out and does that, often we go higher. From here, it looks like a 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth wave would take it to 13. I'll look at some shorts and we'll finish up for today. You look at BILL, nasty looking down channel, and it's right on support. If we break here, the stock's looking at 70 and even high 50s. CALX rolled over, head and shoulder type top, snap back and failed, bring down bear flag. It looks like targeting 47 and 41. Signal broke, head and shoulder top, and snapping back. If it fails here, it's going to roll over, but the technicals are a bit too strong for me right now. Clear field broke and continues to look like it's going a lot lower. I have targets now high 40s and low 40s. COP, I'm skeptical about oils. They're forming fan formations. This one's already broken a bear flag. That's ConocoPhillips. Came down and bounced, but any break below here, move under 106 3/4. Probably gets me down in the 98 range, even as low as here. 88. DGX forming a topping type pattern. If it rolls over here, it could get hammered. Keep an eye on this one. DINO is a tech traded swing short. I didn't like that bounce on Friday. Many of the oils rallied, but it does look like a negative configuration and maybe a head and shoulders top. DINO targets at 48, 43, 37. NBIX also looks like a little head and shoulder breakdown bear flag. Breakdown to support and bounce. Any move on this one under 99 could see this thing fall away into the 80s. Overstock also rolling back. It just doesn't look good to me. Look at the down channel. Next target for me, 17. Plexus breaks down hard and rallies back. I'll make some sort of wedge in here. Easy stop over 102. Targets are 92, 86. Tandem, lousy chart. Really poor reaction to the market rally. If we break this pattern, which looks like a multi-month flag, targeting mid-30s and high 20s. Tech target got creamed last week. That was on my tech trader swing short list. But I didn't actually put, no, it was a tech trader boxer short list, but tech trader, boy, I missed that opportunity. I was going to give you, I saw it when I saw that flag. But anyway, it got hammered last week from 53 to 38 very quickly, 15 points, and may not be done. Next target's 35 and 32. VTLE, formerly Laredo Petroleum, that's a tech trader swing short. You can see the bear wedge on it. Easy stop over 58, but the rollover targets are 45 and 39. And that's it for me, folks. That was a look at all the longs, the shorts, the indices, the underlying technicals, the ETFs of interest. A very interesting week coming up, timing-wise. So let's keep close tabs on it, and that's a look at the important stuff you need to know for next week. Please review this and review it again. Be prepared for Monday. We're going to need it. This is HB signing off, wishing you a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I'll talk to you later.